Hello. Hope everybody enjoyed lunch or still enjoying lunch. Mr. Ross, you already saved the world. Sit down. It's a Mike, and thank Mike Gibbons for those kind comments you made about me. All right, he knows he just has to say a few kind words for me to throw a party next year. All right. You know, I'm easily bribed. It's very easy. So it's a distinct pleasure to introduce, obviously, the most beautiful ambassador the United States has ever had, especially from Ireland. And fortunately, she made it through hunger and made it to the United States. But AA for a diplomat always was a problem in the United States. And then we got Ann Anderson, who came from, been an ambassador or in the service since 1972. You wouldn't know that looking at her. Ambassador to France, 2005 to 2009, to the United Nations from Ireland, and the first female ambassador from Ireland to the United States. And it's a distinct great pleasure to introduce Anne, who's been my dinner partner, excuse me, Frank, lunch partner several times, and God bless.
Well, thank you very much, Bill, for that introduction. And we've had some great discussions when we've been dinner partners a few times over the past year. It's terrific to be here. I'm genuinely delighted, and my warm thanks to the Council for inviting me. I gather this lunch has become a kind of rite of passage for the Valentine's Day weekend. Where better to spend it than in this gorgeous part of Florida. And I want to say that I'm so happy that I'm sharing the speaking slots at the lunch today with John Leahy. I'm one of the 20,000 who has made it through the doors of the Great Hunger Museum, and I certainly recommend it to all of you here. Even though it's so long ago, back in the mid-1800s, the experience of the Great Famine has really imprinted itself on the Irish psyche. And it affects our sense of ourselves, our view of our history, our prioritization of issues in the contemporary world, our shaping of our development aid policy, which has a very big focus on food security. So you actually don't know who we are. You don't really understand the Irish people unless you understand that part of our history. And so I follow that recommendation that John gave you to all of you to go and visit the Great Hunger Museum. And as I sat there listening to him, I was thinking, you know, there's something very poignant and great source of pride for me to be coming and talking to you today about Ireland's economic renaissance. Because when you think of the long and often heartbreaking history we Irish have had, it's wonderful that there's something positive, there's so much that's positive that I can talk about today. But before I come to that, I do want to say a word in acknowledgement of the Ireland-U.S. Council and its long and rather storied history at this stage. As you all know, of course, created just before that visit by John F. Kennedy to Ireland in 1963, back to the land of his ancestors. So it's been an extraordinary history over those decades. And I like so much of what the Council is doing, and in particular, I'd pick out the work that you do with scholarships and arranging work experience for young people. Many of you were at the dinner last night, the American Ireland Fund dinner, and John Fitzpatrick, who's here today, was talking so eloquently about the need to connect to the young generation, to make them feel the strength of their Irishness. And that's a conversation we all need to continue to have, but the work that the Council does is very important in that regard. I want to say as well that I really do like that title, that it was the Council chose the title of my address, Ireland's Economic Renaissance. And I would say also, it's so much better than the titles that have been suggested to me or even foisted upon me so many times over the last months as we have the Irish economic resurgence. People keep coming back to, you know, the return of the Celtic tiger and the rebirth of the Celtic tiger. And I keep reminding people, you know, there's no nostalgia in Ireland for the Celtic tiger years. Yes, we're happy with our recovery, all of that, but there was a lot that wasn't right about the Celtic tiger. And I often joke with people and say, you know, well, the tiger was never an animal that was native to Ireland, and we discovered to our cost that it doesn't do so well out of its natural habitat. So economic renaissance suits me far better as a subject to talk about. And I think one can fairly apply that without being too much prone to putting on the rose-coloured spectacles. I think it is fair to apply that term economic renaissance to what's happened in Ireland. Because I just have to take you, and I'll only do this very briefly because it's not a happy experience, to take you back to 2008 and to remind you of where we were at that time. That was, of course, the year that the Irish economy crash landed, and many, if not all of you, will be very familiar with the dreary script that followed that crash landing. In the wake of the banking and the debt crisis, we had the bailout, the loss of our economic sovereignty, the years of austerity, and the huge dent to our international reputation. Morale was low, emigration was high, consumer confidence was absolutely on the floor back in Ireland, as people were worried about the months and the years ahead. So if you fast forward to where we now are, it is absolutely transformative to look at the current situation. Last year, as many of you will know, we had a growth of 4.7%. I mean, that by any standards is extraordinary. By European standards, it is quite amazing. It was by a significant margin the highest growth rate in Europe. Our public finances are back under control. This year, we are going to hit the EU target of our deficit being below 3%. We're back in the market for financing in the normal way. Obviously, as I said, and as you all know, we're out of the bailout, and our bonds are now selling at historic lows. So reflecting all of this, consumer confidence has hit a 7-year high. Unemployment, of course, it's still too high. It's at 10.5%, but that is almost 5 percentage points down on where it was 2.5 years ago. So that's a real measure of what's going on in the economy. And those unemployment rates are falling not because people are emigrating in large numbers. There is still some emigration, but it's well down on where it was at the height of the austerity. So the unemployment figure is coming down because real jobs are being created, and good jobs, full-time jobs in the economy. Now, of course, beyond that kind of statistical snapshot, the real question for all of us is this recovery sustainable? Is it going to last? And we certainly believe that it is. And happily, the economists agree with us on this because even when you look at the range of current predictions for the growth in the Irish economy in 2015, it's averaging out in predictions are slightly different, but in general, people are predicting 3.6% growth this year, which will still be extraordinarily strong by any standards, and particularly by European standards. And so the question, of course, is, again, when we look at the sustainability of the recovery, what's driving the recovery, and are those drivers of the recovery going to last into the future? All of you know, obviously, it's your business to know, but you know that Ireland is one of the most globalised economies in the world. So, of course, it's not going to come as any surprise to you if I say that two of the key drivers of our recovery are our exports and FDI, foreign direct investment. And on both of those fronts, the picture is looking very, very good. Our exports are powering ahead, and currently our exports from Ireland are at an all-time high. We're well back above the pre-2007 peak, back to those figures in 2007 before the crash when we were exporting so strongly. 2014, last year, we saw an 8% increase on growth of exports the previous year, and all the predictions for this year are very positive. In that, of course, we're going to be aided, we expect, by the current exchange rate. As you will know, the euro is relatively weak at present, and that brings a whole lot of issues in its train, but certainly in terms of exports, it's a plus for us. Another plus for us is that two of our key export markets here in the United States and in the United Kingdom, those economies are doing relatively well, and of course when they do well, it's good for our exports here. Now on the FDI front, again, things are looking really well. The foreign direct investment continues to pour into Ireland. 2013 was the best year in a decade for FDI in Ireland, so way back to the levels and surpassing the levels we had before the crash. And 2014 more than matched 2013. And from all my discussions with the IDA, our agency that attracts FDI to Ireland, it's clear that the pipeline is really excellent. So FDI prospects looking very good. Obviously, most of you will know the kind of mantra that we apply there in terms of talking about our FDI. It's the 4 T's, and I have this off by heart at this stage. I've used it on so many occasions, but it still does sum it all up. It's the tax, it's the talent, it's the technology, and it's the track record. Now, on tax levels, you'll all be familiar with our 12.5% corporate tax, and that is absolutely rock solid. During the depths, if I put it that way, of our austerity, we did face some pressure from some of our EU partners. People like the French and so on thought that one of the ways forward for us was for us to increase our corporate tax rate. We were absolutely adamant, even at the worst of times, that we were not going to touch our tax rate. And I think our European partners have well understood that, and the pressure has certainly eased, if not entirely disappeared, in that regard. So the tax rate is going to stay at 12.5%. All the political parties, public opinion, are rock solid on that. The talent is extraordinary, and I know I might sound just like an Irish ambassador saying what an Irish ambassador would say, but it is true. If any of you, I mean, you just have to go to Ireland, go to Dublin, if any of you have been there recently, it is absolutely humming in that regard. There is the young Irish workforce, one of the best educated workforces in Europe, and the statistics are there. I'm not going to stun you with statistics after your lunch, but they're there to demonstrate those figures for third level education in Ireland and where we stand in European terms. But it's not just, and that's what's interesting, it's not just the Irish talent. If you're in Dublin, in particular in Dublin, but around the country, but let's just talk about Dublin for a moment, you will just feel it and see it on the streets. You have all these young, tech-savvy people who are coming in from all over Europe